Just so he's judging me. How's my hair look? Is it beautiful?
It's got this nice wave happening.
Oh, good. Perfect. G'day guys, Chris here from Vo-Gus Prospecting. Today I'm going to take you on a bit of an adventure. We're going to look at how you can find gold from research to field. So the whole idea of this video is to allow you to learn the skills that you will need to find your own spots, to find gold where less people go. And it's an invaluable skill. It takes a long time to perfect. I'm still perfecting it, and you can always learn something new. This will give you the fundamentals, and hopefully you'll be out there very soon in your own patch of gold bearing ground. Gold prospecting starts at home with a computer and with literature. In the old days it was books, so from books that I've written like this that will tell you about how you go out and find gold, to books like this that tell you about how gold works in our currency systems, to books like Doug Stone's books that tell you more about how to build things like sluices, gold cradles, and how gold sheds off deposits in hillsides. That's where it starts, in your literature, and there are a few key things that you should be reading to find your own spots. Books are great, but the internet's even better because it gives you everything you could possibly want for absolute minimal cost, and you have access to it right now. The first place I start is Facebook. You want to find out what the closest gold is to you, because it's going to be the easiest to get you, both cost-wise for petrol to get there, and you'll be able to make regular trips out to that site. I live in the northeast, so I simply typed in northeast gold prospecting into Facebook, and it brought up a whole heap of different pages on that subject. This one's Northeast Victoria Prospecting and Detecting. If we look at it, you can see all the finds that people have put up, including coins. Someone's gone and seen some historical sites in the area, videos of what people have dug up, and some of the equipment that they're using. Now, this will give you a really good indication of what kind of gold is in your area, and I'll also give you keywords to research. So I know for a fact that Northeast Victoria has gold in it now because this Facebook site has shown me that people are prospecting out here. Once I know that I have gold in the area that I'm looking, and have some keywords to search, I move on to my next website, and that's Trove. Looking on some of those Facebook pages will give you keywords. In my area, most of the time people will look up El Dorado, Reedy Creek, so you can start to research the history of it. I simply typed in Beechworth gold mining because Beechworth gold mining should give me a large area. Beechworth, or the Indigo Shire in particular, is a very large area encompassing a lot of towns. Trove is basically a website that puts all the old and new newspaper articles you could possibly look at in one place for you, and by using keywords you can narrow down. So Beechworth gold mining is going to give me articles based purely on gold mining, and we look here, we have articles from 1862 to 1918, 1855 to 1918, and they tell you about the Beechworth Gold Mining Company, which was done in the Bendigo Advertiser. And these articles will give you everything from the amount of people who are working on mines to deaths that happened on mining sites, how much gold they were pulling out of the hills, even the type of gold that they were pulling out of it. And they will give you place names as well. So they might give you a name, just for example, Reefton Hills, which is in Myrtleford, which is in Myrtleford. It was its biggest producing mine. Now, Reefton Hills has a hope of tributaries and places that you could check out and go out and prospect in. So this is going to give you your place names. This is going to give you where you need to go. Earth Resources is your next step from Trove. Now that you have an area from Facebook and you've researched some place names or creek names or gullies that bore gold in the old times, you're going to want to know exactly where you're going and why you're going there. Earth Resources in Victoria, at least, is a fantastic resource. They offer a whole heap of different scale maps for free. We can go to 1 to 50,000 scale geological maps, and we can pick entire areas for the entire state. So if we go around Bendigo, we can click on the map, click download, and once it kicks into gear, we'll have a map for Bendigo. On these maps, it will show you everything from, well, here we go, other YouTube download. On these maps, it will show everything from contact zones, fault lines, it will show you known reefs, it will show you different soil types, elevations, the whole kit and caboodle. And it can take some time to learn to read them, but having them is invaluable because they will put you right on top of where you need to go. Now these are big maps. I've seen these printed out at Officeworks in an A0 size, and you still need a magnifying glass to pick up the detail. So you do need a halfway decent computer to zoom in and really check out the details in them. So this is the one for Bendigo, and I've used several of these maps already, so I can tell you right now that the dots that we've got over here are marking alluvial workings from the old timers. And these are the sort of things that you will need, because when you find out your creek name on Trove, you will come to this map and you'll be able to look up the same creek name on here and see if it was marked as a major alluvial working. It doesn't mean that it will have every single creek marked that has gold in it, but the ones that had a lot of gold in it, they will definitely be marked. The other thing that will mark is reef systems. I'll see if I can find one on this map. And reef systems mean that if you went there with a detector or even a pan, you're likely to find coarser, chunkier gold. You're actually finding the source of the gold. So usually these are reef systems here, is what they're marked on the maps. And they're fantastic. That's what you need to be looking for on these maps. Then you can put yourself right on top of where you need to be. The other thing that Earth Resources allows you to do is look up current and expired mining leases in your area. Here I've brought up a map of Chiltern, which is some 30 minutes from Beechworth. This map is interactive. You click on the mining lease and it will bring up the details of who owns it and how long that lease is going to go for. So this particular lease expires in 2021, which means currently there are people looking for base minerals of gold and tin in the Chiltern area. This will limit some of the places that you will be able to go and prospect, because if there is an active lease on it, there are going to be laws governing what you can do as a prospector in there. You might not be able to go there at all. However, it does show you expired mining leases as well, up to about 20 odd years ago. And that means that you can go to places where very recently there was payable gold, and that will allow you once again to get closer to the sources of gold with far more information. So you're pretty much guaranteeing yourself that when you walk out there, you're going to find something. One of the last things that I like to do online when it comes to research is to jump on YouTube. There are a lot of great YouTubers out there covering pretty much every area you can poke a stick at. I've watched a lot of videos from the US, a lot of videos from England, a lot of videos from Australia, and they will all give you valuable information, even if they don't give you specific place names. Andrew from Adventure Gold is one of those channels that does give you place names, and he does give you places that you could potentially go yourself. But the best thing about YouTube is that when you watch videos of a particular area, say you were looking at where Andrew goes, which is usually somewhere around Hill End and the Turon River that you can see here, you can see the sort of gold that he's pulling out, and the sort of gold that he pulls out is going to dictate what. That's the basic line that I take to finding a new creek, and I've done this for a creek in my area. I first researched Facebook to find out if anyone had been mining there. Apparently no one had been mining there before, and I moved on to my next one, which was Trove. At Trove, I found some very, very solid articles explaining to me that the creek pulled out some of the largest gold in my area, even though it didn't last for very long, that rush, but it was very nuggety, coarse gold. There was a big, big reef system there. I then checked out if it had a mining license on it, which it did not have a current mining license on it. However, there was an expired one there from 2003. Now, the expired mining license means that there was payable gold with somewhere between 1993 and 2003, which is fantastic. I then went onto Earth Resources and downloaded the geological map for that area and double checked where the reefs were. And once I figured out where the reefs were that were marked because of my mining license that I knew all about, once I found them, I went onto Google Maps and I marked the position of that reef roughly down to about 200 meters on my GPS, as close as I could get it. Now, with the mapping overlays that you can use on Earth Resources, you could get it right on top of it, but I'm still learning how to use that bit. I've also seen a couple of videos of detectorists online in a similar area to the creek that I'm about to head out to, that found decent sized nuggets. So I'm definitely packing my detector, but I'm also taking a small pan and some crevicing tools, because I personally find that crevicing is the best way to find out what kind of gold is in that creek. Hi guys, we made it out into the bush and we've got as close as I could to the GPS coordinates. Now, unfortunately, the way that I would have had to have gone to get right on top of where that reef was marked on the map, my car's not capable of doing it. There's a good chance I would have damaged something or gotten a lot of trouble. So now I've changed tactics. What I've done is I've followed the track to the base of the reef. So theoretically speaking, it should shed off the top of the mountain and come down the gullies and land in the creek. And I'm going to follow that creek all the way around the base of the hill with the detector and just see what's there. There's not much water in it at the moment, none at all in the upper section where I am. There's a little bit down lower, but I'm not worried about the lower stuff. What I want to see is if the geology looks right. I want to see if I can find quartz reefs. I want to see if I can find good signals to the detector, possibly nuggets that have shed off the reef that are closer, or even heavy objects, so things like square head nails or anything like that indicates that old time miners were working up in and around this area. On top of that, we also want to make sure that we're checking for things like mullock heaps and mine shafts, because they're also indications that there was gold here worth working, putting effort in for. So let's go and have a look. From our research, we know what kind of equipment we have to bring out. In my case, we're working in the shadows of a reef system, which means there's a good chance for nuggets. So I brought along my macro gold racer. This is extremely good at picking up small fine gold as well as big nuggets. So it will help me identify if there is a reef in the area, and it will also allow me to identify things like nails and whatnot that have fallen out in low pressure systems inside the creeks, which will hedge my bets and allow me to pan in areas where there's likely gold. If we're talking about panning equipment on an exploratory trip, I don't like taking a big shovel. I just take a little tiny shovel. And the reason for that is simple. I don't want to be lugging around over many kilometers a full-size shovel. This is nice and light. I've also got a pry bar in here to help me unwedge any rocks that I find in crevices or move big boulders out of the way. I've got my snuffer bottle to collect any gold that I may find. I have a tiny pan. It's only a little ultralight hiking pan that just fits into the front of my backpack. It's very light and it allows me to work just enough dirt to get an idea of what's here. I've got my pinpointer for my metal detector, a water bottle, and a couple of crevicing tools like a paintbrush and a screwdriver to help me scrape out any cracks that I might find along the way. Now that I'm actually in the creek, I start looking for likely spots. Even though this creek is dry and I can't see how the water's flowing, there are other indications that tell me where gold could possibly drop out. If I was collecting buckets of dirt to go home and pan off or run through a small river sluice, there are some certain areas that I would definitely be digging behind compared to others. If we look here, we've got a nice section of bedrock. Now that could create some nice crevices for me to clean out. However, it's on the inside bend. That inside bend is here because of that bedrock. When we look at how the water comes around this corner, you can see lots of fine gravels. So we can see fine gravels in behind every single large rock. And those fine gravels only drop out of the system in low pressure spots. So in absence of water, I use the fine gravels to dictate where the low pressure systems are on inside bends or even behind obstructions. If you're seeing fine gravels, you're seeing a low pressure system. The next thing I'm noticing about this creek is that there is a lot of quartz, and it's not just any quartz. You don't want pure white quartz, that's almost worthless all the time. What you want is mineralized quartz. See this? You can see that the quartz has been injected in and around its host rock, and it's also got heavy mineralization in it. You can see it from the staining where iron ores and whatnot have rusted out. You've got an even better bit here. And this tells me that the quartz came up with more than just itself. It came up with more than just quartz. It came up with copper, it came up with gold, it came up with all sorts of heavy metals. And that bodes well for finding a nice chunk of quartz with some gold in it. I was getting a little bit worried about where I was because I hadn't seen any mine workings right up until now. That's an old shaft, which means that they were working gold here. And to drop a shaft down also means it's probably deep lead. They had to dig through a lot of overburden and stuff to get down to the bedrock to work the gold efficiently. I don't hunt anymore, but I know a few hunters that would be probably pretty jealous of where I am right now. I love crevicing in new areas because it gives you a really good concentrated idea of what you can expect. You want to be looking for little tiny thin cracks. Oh, there's a lot of ants on there. I'll put your home back, boys. These sort of cracks here can be loaded with gold. Ideally you want rock and gravel in them, but you know, it doesn't matter. You just break them open and have a look. So there's plenty of spots to check. I've got my eye on this one. It's underwater still, and you can see that there's some really big rocks wedged in the way, and this is hard bedrock, and it's right in the main flow of the creek, so there might be some good stuff down the bottom there. We'll clear some rocks and... So I actually managed to break up some of the bedrock at the bottom of that quite easily. Got a little bit of clay out of it, and we're just going to see what we've got. And this just tells us, well, we know there's gold here because there's gold mine workings and the history tells us that, but we want to see what's still left here. And this is the first chance of doing that. Oh, I've got gold. I've actually got gold. Only one little bit. Let's clean it up. One little tiny bit. Right there. And that means there's gold here. So now we just got to try and find a higher and bigger deposit of it. This is exciting. Alright, we are way up in the creek system now. We're kilometres and kilometres up. Been detecting and sampling the whole way, finding a little bit of gold. I just wanted to show you this. So this is a quartz reef. It's only a little one. All these bits of quartz sticking out here is why the miners were here. Now, I've run my detector over it. There is no gold, and it's really obvious, so the old timers would have dug them out anyway, if they had. Well, I have made it way up into the headwaters of this gully. You can tell that simply because there are no gravels. The water and erosion just hasn't had time enough to make a whole heap of rock, which is going down there, and it's getting tighter and tighter up here. You can see why we're here though. Some of the geological structures here, the waves and the rock, all from the compression forces that would have fractured it and brought the quartz and gold and minerals up. So it's all got all the right signs. I do believe I'm past wherever the gold is shedding into, but it is cool always to check it out. I just turned my detector on to have a bit of a scan of some of the quartz that's up here, and this is what we're talking about. The ID numbers on the macro racer actually relate back to metals. If I'm searching for pennies, depending on the level of corrosion and whatnot, they will register around an 85 on the racer. And if you look at the quartz that we're scanning down there, now pennies are made of copper, which means that there's probably a little bit of copper in that rock at some point. And, ooh, oh no, that's just ground noise. Got excited there for a second, but that shows you there are minerals up here. Well guys, me and Grizzly are going to call it a day. I hope this video has been helpful for you. Remember, these are some of the basic tricks that you want to be looking for. Once you've done your research, which is 90% of the work, it's just about getting out in the creek and having a look. Check likely spots, inside bends, behind obstructions, on benches, crevicing, and any kind of low pressure system which will be identified either by an eddy in water or light gravels with heavy rocks surrounding them. They indicate small low pressure systems. So if you get light gravels directly behind a rock, it means that there was a low pressure system enough for those light rocks to drop out, and it's likely that heavier stuff will have too. If you find a wide open section where a creek goes from real narrow to real wide, then there's a good chance that there will be a lot of heavy rocks in and around that area, and that's also a very good place to check for gold. Remember to check for color changes in the soil and consistency changes in the soil. But it will all come back to your research, no matter what you do. Trove is a great example of a place that you can go to look for articles on what the mines were called, what gullies they were working in, how many people worked there, what kind of gold, and the amount that they were pulling out. This will give you an idea of what you need to bring. Do you need to bring a detector, a pan, to go up and have a look? You also want to make sure that you're doing things like researching GeoVic or Earth Resources, because that will give you maps of known reefs, worked reefs, alluvial areas, contact zones, fault zones, all these things. You're looking for geological disturbances. When you find them, often there's gold associated with them. So, you know, it takes a long time, but it's in the research phase. As soon as you research, you'll come out and you'll find gold, like I did today. I have found a little bit of gold. You haven't seen it on camera. I'm going to go home and clean it up because it's full of muck at the moment, and there's not enough clean water around to actually get it done properly. So I'm going to go home and clean up the gold. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this video was real helpful for you. I hope it lets you find your own patch of your own. And as always, guys, I hope to catch you out here sometime and check out this gold.